I'll try it your way for once. Remember what we used to say?
Well, now that Devil May Cry 2 is officially out of the way and out of my life forever, it's finally time to move on to what is arguably the best action game in history, Devil May Cry 3. As most of you watching this may already know, DMC3 took the formula that DMC1 had founded and expanded upon it, making it the first game in the franchise to truly utilize its potential. Sure, as good as the first game was, it was still plagued with a plethora of flaws that dragged down the experience quite a bit. Fast forward to the third installment, where it seems that the magic that was inside all along had finally been unleashed, giving us the first, but certainly not the last masterpiece in the series. Nearly every issue that was present in the first two games had been wiped clean, and not only that, but everything that the franchise had offered by that point have been improved on an insurmountable level. The combat has been fleshed out by tenfold, with tons of different devil arms to choose from, each of which possess their own unique combos, properties, and abilities. There are plenty of other things that this game introduced, which I'll get to later on in the video. But by far the most significant move they made for DMC3 was adding a full-fledged story that wasn't just a few cutscenes mismatched together with absolutely nothing happening until the final act of the game. This game just added so much new content and new mechanics to the franchise, it does everything a sequel is supposed to do. Yes, chronologically speaking, I know this isn't a sequel. Now shut the fuck up and let me speak. Now, undoubtedly this game is by no means perfect, and it does have a few flaws, but in any event, it's still an absolute treasure of a game that features just about everything you could ever want in an action series. But how good is this game? Like, what exactly makes it so impeccable and absolutely worth it even 16 years later? Well, you're about to find out, obviously. If there's one thing that the Devil May Cry franchise is known for, it's the stylish, combo-heavy approach to its combat system, and unlike DMC2, DMC3 stays true to its stylish origins and then some, offering some of the most batshit insane combat in game history. Seriously, you don't even need to play the game to understand just how mind-boggling this is. Just look at the way this hot anime demon man chops up dozens of helpless demons in the swiftest and most badass way imaginable. Watching the game is one thing, but actually playing it for yourself is an entirely different story. This isn't one of those overly glossy action games that only make you look like a badass. Oh, most definitely not. This game makes you feel like one too. When I've got the controller in my hands and I'm mercilessly slaughtering demons by the dozen, I really get the rush of adrenaline that is addictive as hell. Cocaine? No thank you, DMC3 is my type of drug. But of course, just simply saying that the combat is fantastic doesn't do this game the justice it so rightfully deserves. I need to thoroughly explain what makes the action so goddamn good, to the point where I almost cannot stop playing this game. The first addition in this game you'll likely notice first is the overhaul of weapons. I mean, holy shit, Capcom went all out in supplying Dante with such an expansive arsenal, especially compared to its predecessors. DMC1, 2 devil arms. 4 if you're counting Force Edge and Sparta, though those two are pretty much the same albeit with a few minor differences. DMC2, literally 1 devil arm and 2 reskins. Now, how about DMC3? 5 whole devil arms that, as I already mentioned in the intro, all possess their own unique attacks, combo opportunities, properties, advantages over certain enemy types, etc. But the thing that really makes DMC3 shine is the way you can swap between 2 different weapons in real time. As you could imagine, this mechanic allows for some insane combos that are always so fun to pull off, especially if you're using the Swordmaster style. Unfortunately, this game only allows you to carry no more than 2 devil arms at a time, except for the Switch version. Which is unfortunate, but even then, the possibilities regarding combos are damn near endless, especially if you mix and match your devil arms to create new combinations. This game offers so much in terms of combative versatility that I swear I discover a new combo each and every time I play it. The combat just has that much depth to it. The other awesome aspect that your arsenal shares is how each devil arm serves a different purpose on the battlefield. Each one is so vastly different from the last, it's like the developers wanted to appeal to every type of playstyle they could. and needless to say, they very well succeed in doing just that. Rebellion is your starting weapon and is a good way to learn how the general combat works. Cerberus is used to quickly string attacks together. Agni and Rudra allow you to control the elements of earth, wind, and fire. Nevan is for crowd control, and Beowulf is used to unleash devastating attacks on your opponents. Having a ton of different weapons is one thing, but the way the game allows you to seamlessly swap them with no buffer or animation or anything just goes to show how fluid, satisfying, and just plain awesome this game's combat is. One more thing I absolutely adore about the Devil Arms is how you obtain each and every one of them. After defeating the bosses I named above, you pretty much take their soul, and by doing so, gain a brand new weapon which is followed by an absolutely sick animation. Not only that, but the attacks you encountered in those boss fights, those are your attacks now. That's just so awesome to me. It's such a cool concept of obtaining weapons, and it only makes defeating those bosses all the more satisfactory. Like, how is that not cool? Like, completely stealing the moveset from bosses you defeating? Are you hearing the words I'm saying? Like, shit, that's so fucking cool. Anyway, regarding the boss fights, they are not only among the highlights of the game, but they're also some of its biggest flaws as well. Now, of course, guys like Vergil, Beowulf, Agni, and Rudra are all fun and strongly designed bosses, but can the same thing be said for Leviathan, Gigapede, Arkham, Doppelganger? As downright amazing and unforgettable as some of these boss fights may be, some of them are just not that good, and some of them are kinda bad. Whether they're filled to the brim with stupid gimmicks that do nothing but frustrate the player with artificial difficulty, or they're just repetitive and predictable. I seriously dread some of these bosses each time I revisit the game. You know what? I've been noticing a bit of a trend with this game's boss fights. The really good ones tend to be just a straightforward battle against a tough opponent, ones where you must apply all the skills you learned up to this point, as well as adapting to their attack patterns and using that knowledge against them. Where the bottom of the barrel fights tend to have some pretty annoying gimmicks that either make the battles needlessly frustrating, like Leviathan and Garyon, I think that's how you pronounce it, or they're like Doppelganger and Gigapede, where you're forced to repeat the same action over and over again until his health is all the way depleted. Wow! Smack a light panel until it opens up, hit the guy a few times, smack another light panel until it opens up, hit the guy a few times again. Oh, go smack another light panel until it opens up, hit the guy a few times again. Oh cool, I get a new style. Out of all the terrible bosses in this game, the worst ones have to be either Arkham or Gigapede. The former may be worse on an objective level, but at least that one provided some sort of a challenge, even if it does feel aggravating and just not fun. Where the latter literally has you jumping onto their back and just wailing on them with pretty much nothing to worry about. Then there are bosses like Lady that kind of fall in the middle territory and just feel boring. Nothing special. But out of the more gimmicky boss fights, I will say that Nevan's is probably the best of the style, mainly because her attacks are actually pretty fun to dodge, and her attack patterns actually get different and much more aggressive towards the end, to the point where she even gets completely brand new attacks once her health goes like all the way down. As you can tell, that line was improvised. Anyway, despite some bosses falling on the short end of the stick, the ones that are actually good are very good. Like, these are some top tier, all-time best boss fights, and feature just about everything you could ever want in an action-packed boss fight. They feature the perfect amount of difficulty, they change your attack patterns throughout the ball to keep things interesting, they're constantly relentless and engaging, and they keep you on the edge of your seat at all times. And best of all, each of them encourage you to get in full touch with your strategic side. When you defeat guys like Vergil and Beowulf, you really feel like you've just taken on an overpowering force. There's just so much satisfaction that comes with defeating them. And oh yeah, Vergil, why are you so fun to fight? It's common knowledge amongst Devil May Cry fans that Vergil boss fights are a masterpiece by default. Especially the third one in this game, which is, as of writing this, my favorite boss fight in video game history. Vergil in this game is very similar to the 3 Nello Angelo boss fights in DMC1, where in each subsequent encounter is a greater test of skills you learn throughout the game. But the thing that sets DMC3 Vergil such a ways apart from DMC1 Vergil is that each fight feels even more varied, more challenging, and simply just more fun. To better explain the amount of variety, Vergil has a new set of weapons and attacks every time you fight him, which is an amazing design choice that made each encounter feel fresh and something totally brand new. First encounter, Yamato, Judgment Cut, and I think he has a fourth edge here too, I can't exactly remember. Second encounter, Beowulf and Devil Trigger gets introduced. Third encounter, completely different attack patterns and some brand new abilities courtesy of the Devil Trigger. I actually remember playing the game's finale for the first time, and throughout that entire sequence, I was hollering at my TV like an obese 6-year-old when their mother drives past a Dairy Queen. I was just having the time of my life. I'm gonna be honest right now, I am notorious for my inability to express my emotions, especially in real life. So when a game really gets me that pumped up, you know you did something right. Alright, now that I've gotten the boss fights and general combat out of the way, it's time to bring up my next gameplay related topic. Something that has since become one of the most distinctive staples of the franchise, the styles. Using 4 distinct playstyles to choose from, your gameplay options are expanded even further. Each one offers their own distinct attributes in order to try and cater to every type of player. If you're like me and just love going all out and performing crazy ass combos, then use Swordmaster. If playing defense is your thing, use Royal Guard. If swift evasiveness is your thing, use Trickster. And finally, if you're a huge gun enthusiast, then Gunslinger is a style for you. You also unlock 2 other styles, Quicksilver and Doppelganger, by beating the titular bosses. But unfortunately, those 2 styles have yet to make a return on the franchise, which is a crying shame because they were so much fun to use, especially Quicksilver. Now, up until this point, you may have noticed that pretty much my entire analysis of the game has been in a positive light, with the exception of some of the bosses I've bitched about. I say this because now it's time to visit some of the biggest flaws in the game. The biggest one out of all of them has to be that stretch of missions from 14 to 19. Don't get me wrong, there's some content earlier in the game that misses the mark. For instance, the unfun Easter egg hunt crap has returned, but that particular portion of the game is by far the weakest in some places. Mission 15 has you backtracking back and forth through doors with interchangeable paths, which is about as boring and annoying as it sounds. Now, since I've played the game from start to finish a good 10 or so times, I know how to beat the level in no time at all. But during my first playthrough, I got so lost that it took me about 20 minutes to finish the entire stage. Mission 16 has this dumb ball puzzle that was also aggravating during my first playthrough. And then there was Mission 19. Oh my god. Holy shit, this mission is a fucking chore. Never mind the Arkham boss fight at the end, the mission has something whose Agni is on an equal level. What am I talking about? That's right, the mirror section. Hey guys, let me ask you... Okay, forget that. Hey guys, let me ask you something for a quick second. Let me bend your ear for a moment. Do you think that hitting a bunch of mirrors while you're swarmed with enemies that cannot be attacked sound fun to you? The segment would be so abysmal if you could actually, you know, attack the enemies around you. It just makes it so unnecessarily difficult and a slog to get through. To make matters worse, you can only damage one of the mirrors at a time, a few short seconds until the game picks another mirror, so on and so forth. Just look at this shit. How could anyone think this was even a remotely good idea? I'm just grateful that you pitted against the best non-boss enemies in this game, and not one of the annoying ones like Blood Gorals or the Fallen. And on that note, some of these enemies are a chore to fight. The 7 Hells, who are based off the 7 Deadly Sins, which is fucking awesome, are all great enemies. So are the Arachni, but pretty much every flying enemy is either boring or just migraine-inducing. Blood Gorals get a pass because he encouraged a player to use their guns proficiently, but the Fallen, Dullahans, Soul Eaters, yeah, fuck every last one of those sons of bitches. The Fallen fly through walls and are frequently out of reach. Dullahans just sit there and barely do anything. And while Soul Eaters aren't bad on their own, they become especially painful when paired with other enemy types. There is this one segment in mission I don't remember, where they placed a vanguard with a whole fuck ton of soul eaters, and I swear to God, that part made me nearly pop a blood vessel. Yeah, as good as a lot of these enemies may be, some of them are just a pain in my gluteus maximus. But outside of a few questionable level and enemy design choices, the gameplay is damn near the pinnacle of action-oriented games. The combat is complex and offers so many different things which keeps the gameplay fresh. So many weapons, so many options, so many combos you can pull off, the possibilities are nearly infinite. If you're craving some fast-paced action with slick, fluid, and versatile combat, then this really is the game for you. Just remember that you're going to encounter some rather obnoxious enemies and level gimmicks occasionally, but trust me, it's absolutely worth it. Well, I did not intend to have the gameplay section go on for that long, but I guess there was more to discuss than I imagined beforehand. Anyway, with that out of the way, I can now discuss what is probably the best story in this franchise besides 5's. As I already have mentioned earlier, DMC3 was the first game in the series to have a full, consistent story. Awesome! DMC1 had a severe lack of cutscenes and awkward tone shifts, while DMC2 didn't even have a story. It took them until the third game to finally get a decent story, but hey, it was worth the wait in the end because this story is pretty fantastic. I mean, sure, the plot isn't really anything deep, but the thing that makes this game's story so worthwhile is the spectacle and the characters, especially Vergil and Dante. Just watching these two constantly go off on each other makes for some very memorable cutscenes, with Dante being the cocky badass and Vergil being the more cold and sinister one. There's a bit of an interesting contrast going on between the two, and I just love seeing those two personalities clash together. The best thing about this entire story is Dante, there's no doubt about it. From his unforgettable one-liners to his awesome animations during certain cutscenes, this man just steals the show. I mean, just watch this cutscene where he literally hijacks a motorcycle, rides it up the tower, and proceeds to fend off demons with it. How is that not the coolest fucking thing in the world? Nice little foreshadowing for DMC5, by the way, a game where you literally use a motorcycle as a weapon. This game is just filled to the brim with unforgettable dialogue as well. Just listen to some of it.
You poor thing. Didn't your mother ever teach you how to use a door? Talk about horsepower. I'm sure you have time for one more game, right? I told you before, I don't like anybody who has a bigger mouth than mine. Dude, my father wasn't so hideous. Can't you tell by looking at me?
Got out of the way, Dante is the absolute boss to badmouth the toughest of adversaries, prior to kicking the living shit out of them. Let's not forget to give some credit to Arkham, the game's antagonist as well. Sure, his motive is very basic, but the way he executed is actually pretty damn clever. He forges a fake alliance with Vergil, summons an ancient demonic tower called the 10-Minute Grue, uses Vergil to try and encourage Dante to venture through the tower, manipulates the two brothers into fighting each other to the point of exhaustion, so that he could beat them up easily and take their amulets, and open up the portal to hell and snatch Sparta's power for his own. That's pretty impressive considering he's a bald dude who's got some grotesque gunk on the side of his face. Seriously, what the hell is that stuff? The fact that he was able to trick Dante and Vergil into weakening each other through endless fighting, just so that he could seize their power for his own, is just super cunning and damn near brilliant. He even goes so far as to dress like a complete idiot, aka Jester, to accomplish his goals. His words, not mine. One small complaint I have regarding the story is how they use Lady. Sure, her motives are great, her determination is spectacular, and she can kick some serious ass if some of these cutscenes are anything to go by. I just don't like the way they sorta just rushed her off to the side following her fight against Dante. It would have been nicer to see her, Dante, and even Vergil team up to take down Arkham, but at least Lady did wind up giving Arkham the finishing blow. So combine some amazing cinematography, a cast of likable characters that glow with personality, a consistent albeit weak plot, and the perfect balance between spectacle, grit, and emotion, you got yourself the perfect formula for a solid story. Could the storytelling have been fleshed out a bit? I mean, sure. After all, Vergil and Arkham's ambitions go nowhere beyond just obtaining overwhelming power. Though in Vergil's case, it's more understandable because that power technically belongs to him. Had the actual plot offered just a bit more, this would have been an absolutely amazing story. But what we ended up getting is super fun and memorable. Also, one last thing regarding Arkham. Why do you have to turn into some big slimy blueberry when we could have fought him in his, I'll call it Sparta form? I think we all can agree that would have been way more cooler and way more impactful than what we ended up getting. Imagine the impact this fight would have had on the two brothers if they were forced to take down someone impersonating their father. But outside of those minor flaws, this game serves up a rather great story.
If you like commercials, you're gonna love the next couple of minutes. We'll be right back.
Let's start the party! Time to rock! I'm absolutely crazy about it!
Devil May Cry 3.
The prequel to the legendary Devil May Cry explodes with unrelenting action. Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, rated M for mature.
Don't worry, there'll be more commercials later. But right now, we're going back to the show.
Not really much I can say about this category, other than the fact that the game looks really good, and I absolutely adore the art style. Every demon and boss, with very few exceptions, all have unique and memorable designs, especially the 7 Hells and Enigmas. Again, there are exceptions like the Fallen, who are literally just angels with some weird skull thing plastered onto it, but by far the most well-designed enemy in this game, going by appearances of course, are the chessmen. I don't know how they managed to make something as boring as chess pieces look awesome as hell, but they damn sure did. Not only do they represent the individual chessmen very well, but they also manage to have their own unique look to them. So, yeah, apologies for the brief entry, but that's really all I can say about this game's graphics. They look good, even 16 years later, and the designs are fantastic. Case closed. Also, I love the many skins that Dante and Vergil have. They all look really awesome. One word, badass. This right here is a quintessential action game soundtrack that features more of that stellar industrial metal EBM that I love so much, but written to a much greater extent than in the previous 2 games. These songs are filled with a nearly incalculable amount of pure, raw energy that blends with the tone of the game almost too well. Dante's an all-powerful hard-ass who fucks shit up in the most over-the-top way imaginable. So he's gotta have some good music to go along with it, right? So many fun songs that showcase everything I love about not only video game music, but this style of metal music as well. Crunchy and infectious guitar riffs that accommodate the harsh electronic elements, catchy rhythm sections that sound almost danceable sometimes, and, for the first time in the franchise, awesome vocals. Sean McPherson was the genius behind both the vocals and the lyrics, so give some credit to him. The lyrics are kinda hard to make out, but who the hell cares when the music is this goddamn cool. The main battle themes, as we all know, are terrific in their own regard, but by far the best track in this entire game is Devil's Never Cry, the end credits theme. It's not just the best song in the game, but it might as well be the best song in the franchise as a whole. It's just a brilliant song through and through, as is the soundtrack as a whole. It's one of those OSTs that you can enjoy as you play the game, as well as simply listening to on your own time, like when you're studying, reading, or wasting precious time on a social media app that you're developing a crippling addiction to. I think you and I both know what app I'm referring to. That's right, MeWe. Anyway, are there any flaws with this soundtrack? Well, nothing major really. This is pretty much a perfect soundtrack, and it just has a very strong appeal to me. Just about everything I could ever want in the soundtrack is here, so yeah, it's a 10. Actually, now that I think about it, this is the first 10 I've ever given on my channel, and it certainly won't be the last either. This game has a pretty solid amount of content, about as much as DMC2, but I'd better stop mentioning that utter travesty, or else I'll go spiraling into a coma. Anyway, you got the Bloody Palace making its grand return, and you got 2 playable characters, each of which possess their own distinct moveset. And while that's great and absolutely terrific and positively spectaculazing, there's one very big thing about little old Vergil that seriously bugs the hell out of me. Why couldn't he get his own story mode? Instead of a brand new set of levels, we're treated to the exact same campaign you played with Dante, except all the cutscenes have been removed. Okay, in all fairness, this isn't so bad once you remember that Vergil's moveset is completely different than Dante's, which does put a fresh new spin on it, but at the same time, I just think that a brand new story would have been so much better. All we get in terms of new storytelling content is 2 cutscenes in the very beginning. That's it. But oh well, the campaign is one of the PS2 era's best, and these 2 Devil Boys are both fun as hell to play as, Dante being better by the way, so I guess everything is fine and dandy in the end. It's just that a separate story with Vergil's campaign would have pushed this game to even greater heights. Alright, let me give you all a short quiz to see if y'all have been paying attention throughout this video. Smack that pause button, go into the comments, and tap out the one thing I'm yet to mention in this review. I'll give you a vague hint. It's the camera. Did you get it right? The answer is no, because you didn't do the one thing I asked of you, you silly little fuckwads. Anyway, shitty attempts at humor aside, the camera system is a noticeable improvement from its predecessor, but with that being said, it still shares a few flaws. While the game is still being viewed through fixed angles, you can finally adjust the camera as you would in any other 3D game. It took them 3 goddamn games, but they finally did it. Huzzah! Free hugs and BJs for everyone. But there's a slight issue with this long-awaited mechanic. You can adjust the camera freely, yes, great, awesome. But it's really slow. It's almost like the cameraman was stuck in quicksand the entire time. This is especially noticeable during certain encounters where you're confined to a small tight space where adjusting the camera is hardly any help at all. Damn, what a bummer. This franchise has some of the greatest action and characters in gaming, but something as simple as the camera has been such a struggle throughout its first 3 titles. Hopefully by the 4th game, this issue will finally be resolved and the world can live in peace and harmony forever. Anyway, pretty much anything else regarding polish works just fine. Frame rate is stable and flawless, there aren't any major or even minor glitches, the lock-on system is refined as hell. Also, this isn't exactly a polish issue, but I would like to still mention it here because I feel like a bitch. Why did the developers decide to include more annoying platforming sections? The one with those spinny block things is by far one of the most annoying aspects in the entire game. Please, for the love of Sparta, stop shoehorning platforming segments with the control scheme that is not suited for them. Okay? Good talk. So besides the crappy camera, there's pretty much no issue with this category at all. The polish is pretty good. This is the most replayable game in history. Well, that was an obvious hyperbole, but still, the replay value is through the roof, through the sky, through the atmosphere, through the stratosphere, through the whatever sphere. I love this game so much that I'm currently on a mission to beat it on every single difficulty with both characters. As of writing this, I am on Dante Must Die mode as Dante, and hard mode as Vergil. And trust me, the former is painful, but it's worth it in the end. And it's not just me taking part in such an endeavor either. A few of my friends are taking that same journey as well. This game is just so good and does so many things right. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't go for at least another playthrough. It's just that damn good. Sure, there are some things about the game I may dread, but it doesn't at all detract from my ambition to beat the game time and time again. Devil May Cry 3 is one hell of a package. You get groundbreaking combat, whose quality has only been rivaled by a small niche of games, access to a ton of various guns, devil arms, and styles, a great story with so much fun spectacle and memorable characters, an incredible soundtrack, a fun minigame in Bloody Palace, just so many things. So many things love about this game. There's a good reason as to why I keep coming back to it time and time again. And if you'd ever decide to pick it up, which I highly recommend you do by the way, I'm sure you'd feel the exact same way. Anyway, that was Devil May Cry 3. A game that absolutely shattered my expectations after experiencing the game that shall not be named. I can't even begin to imagine what sort of improvements are made in Devil May Cry 4. Who knows, maybe it'll even be better than DMC 3 somehow.
Wanna know the name? Devil May Cry.
Well, that's a different game for a different video.
You trash!